Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, is there an owner of a white Subaru Outback, license plate L24RBW? Okay, thank you. I'll be right there. Ladies and gentlemen, as we start our service today, I'm going to kindly ask that we turn off or silence all cell phones, electronic devices. Thank you.
El Harim, me'ayin yavo Ezri, me'im Adonai, waseh shamayim va'aretz, al yitein lamot raglecha, al yanun shomerecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomerecha, Adonai tzilecha liad yeminecha. Yomam Hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach malayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvoecha, me'ata v'ad olam, me'ata v'ad olam.
I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. Adonai is your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard your going and coming, now and forever.
In Hebrew, there is no word for funeral. The closest we come is the Hebrew word livaya, which means to accompany. And it is one of the highest mitzvot we have to accompany a loved one to their final physical resting place, just as we take this sacred time to remember Betty and to call to mind the memories and the legacy of love that she leaves behind, held tightly in the hearts of all those who were fortunate enough to know her. And we, as your community, accompany you as you make this journey through the days ahead, carrying the weight of loss and grief, all the while finding comfort in knowing that Betty is now at peace in the tender and more gentler world of spirit and memory. Grief, we are taught, is the heavy price we pay for having the courage to love others as deeply as we do. And if my time with members of your family the other night taught me anything, it was how deeply Betty was loved by her family and how she was loved by all of you and loved you in return. And so we extend our deepest condolences to Betty's family, to her husband, Bob, to her children, Mindy and Joel and Julie, to her grandchildren, Stephanie and Daniel, Brianna, Micah, to her great-grandchildren, Liam and Austin, to her brother Steve, to her extended circle of family and friends. Betty was born and raised in Philadelphia, graduated from high school, and met Bob on a blind date in 1967, set up by mutual friends as Bob had just returned home from service in the Navy. As Bob shared, for their first Valentine's Day together, a few months after they began dating, he proposed. The story being that his Valentine's Day gift to Betty was a ring, and she had gotten him a record. But as Bob said it best, from the beginning, it was simply just love. And they were married in August of 1968, and Mindy and Joel followed several years later. Betty loved her family, and any opportunity for family to gather, including holiday dinners and special events. She was a housewife, but also worked as an elementary school aide in the lunchroom and in the library. She coached Mindy's softball team, although I'm told it was the one season when Mindy was unable to play due to injury, was a den mother for Joel's Cub Scout pack, and loved to keep score at baseball games, whether it was as Joel was playing or while watching her beloved Phillies. Not liking to fly, vacations were always car trips, and always taken as a family, often with other family friends. Betty loved doing jigsaw puzzles and could sit and work on them for hours. She loved to knit and needlepoint, and for a long time played a weekly mahjong game. She was also a proud and devoted charter member of Anne Frank Hadassah. They would bowl in the Hadassah League, do gift wrapping at the Moorestown Mall around the holidays, and she loved going to the art auction and fashion show each year. So much so, I'm told, that one year, after she had gotten all dressed up and ready to go to the art auction, Joel came into her room covered in newly discovered chicken pox. She threw Joel in a Aveeno bath and called Bob to come take care of it so she could attend the event. But in truth, family really did come first for her. As a mom, she'd always ask how her grandchildren were doing, and as Stephanie shared, she always felt so proud of us and would brag about her family. Betty watched Stephanie every day for months when she was a baby, and then again when the grandkids were off from school. Stephanie shared memories of going to the pool, getting their nails done, and playing parcheesi. And Brianna recalled the time they spent playing in their grandparents' loft and the Chinese checkers game that always felt like a simple marbles game without ever really knowing the actual rules. Betty's life was certainly not an easy one. She battled chronic pain, daily migraine headaches, and suffered a stroke. And there were 15 months, I'm told, that went by after her move to Lionsgate and COVID hit, when she wasn't even able to see her family. But as Julie shared, to help with her headaches, Betty would wear pinkish, reddish tinted glasses, meaning that she quite literally moved through the world with rose-colored glasses. As every family simcha approached, she'd talk about wanting to attend and celebrate with everyone. And with the blessing of live streaming, she was able to watch these special family events, even if she wasn't able to leave home to do it. It's said that we don't remember days, we remember moments. We think back on a lifetime of memories and the moments shared together. Perhaps it's the big moments, the holiday dinners, the family trips, simchas, or other celebrations. But most likely, many of the moments we remember are from ordinary days, moments that our hearts just hold on to, that can bring us right back to how we felt in the presence of a mom, a sister, a mom, that reminds us how close she still is, even in the emptiness that testifies to how much she is missed and how deeply she remains loved. Zichrona livracha. May her memory always be a blessing.
Poem by the Israeli poet Zelda, translated into English. Each of us has a name, given by God and given by our parents. Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile, and given by what we wear. Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls. Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our neighbors. Each of us has a name given by our sins and given by our longing. Each of us has a name given by our enemies and given by our love. Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our work. Each of us has a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death.
We'll now hear from members of Betty's family, beginning with her son, Joel.
Thank you all for being here today. It means a lot to our entire family that you took the time to be here to support us in our time of need. And thank you to the clergy of Kolomei for everything you've done for us and you do for us. When I think of my mom, the first thing I think of is her love of family. She always wanted to be surrounded by family, whether it was my dad, Mindy and me, and Julie, Uncle Steve, or especially her grandkids. She had a special place in her heart for Stephanie, Brianna, and Micah. She was always so proud of the young adults that you have become. She would have loved to watch her great-grandchildren grow up as well. When they were still alive, she cherished her moments that she would spend with her parents, my pop-up and my mom, Herb and Miriam, as well as her in-laws, my grandpop and grandmom, Herman and Rosalind. My mom and pop-up lived in PA, and we would go visit them as often as we could, especially in the summer so we can go to their pool in their complex. They would always be at our house for a holiday dinner. My grandma and grandpapa would also come to those holiday dinners as well, but since they lived in nearby Maple Shade, they would come over every Sunday morning for lox and bagels. After we were done eating, my mom and grandmother would play Rummy Cube all afternoon, while my dad and grandfather would watch the Eagles or Phillies game. When the game was over, typically around 4 p.m., my grandfather would go upstairs and say he was ready to go home. At that point, my mom would plead with him to let them play longer, and it usually resulted in them staying for dinner so the Rummy Cube game could continue until dinner was over, or dinner was ready. I never understood why they wouldn't just plan for them to stay for dinner every week. But I guess they like to play the game of, let's go home. No, don't go home yet. Stay for dinner. I don't know. But she also loved her extended family, her cousins in PA and California, and her nieces and nephews, whether they're here in New Jersey, far away in Florida, California, Tennessee, or Mississippi. Every once in a while, she would just pick up the phone and give them a call to say hi because she missed them. When Mindy and I were growing up, we would take summer vacations to go visit her brother and sister-in-law, Steve and Randy, and their family down in Tampa for some years. And other years, we'd go visit my dad's family in Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi. She really did not like to fly, so we'd always drive those long distances. The one thing we looked forward to was her chocolate chip cookies whenever we stopped. She would bake a large batch before we left and had to be transported in a large Charlie Chips container. Those we were visiting hoped that we still had some when we arrived, so much so that they would soon be devoured. While we were there, she had to make another batch for the trip home. As much as she loved her family, she loved her friends equally. Her best friend growing up, my godmother Ruth, along with her husband Larry, were the ones that set my parents up. We would spend a lot of time with them as Mindy and I were growing up. Since their kids, Andy and Paula, were basically our age, we got along really well. They would get together many weekend nights, and the adults would play cards, and the kids would have our own fun until it was time to go to sleep. It was something my mom always loved, playing cards, but also watching the kids have a good time. Aunt Ruth and Uncle Larry would spend a week down in Beach Haven during the summer, and we would go down there for a day or two to see them. We also spent a lot of time with Linda and I and along with their daughters, Betsy, Heather, and Abby. We would see them all throughout the year, but my mom would mostly enjoy the time we spent with them at Downs Farm Swim Club all summer long. Us 5 kids were on the swim team at some point or another, and my mom would always be there loudly cheering for us to do our best. We would also go on trips to Margate with them as well as vacations such as Williamsburg, Virginia. Another family we spent a lot of time with was our friend Norma, her kids Jeff and Elisa. As you can see, she loves spending time with friends and watching kids be kids. But to me and Mindy, she was just mom. We both have a lot of great memories, so I'll try to hit some of the highlights. She loved coming to our activities, as the rabbi was saying, whether it was sports, musical concerts, or anything else, and tried to get involved whenever possible. She was den mother for my Cub Scouts, coached Mindy's softball team even when Mindy broke her wrist and was out for the season, and she always took over scorekeeping duties for my coaches when I played Little League. And when we went to the Phillies game, she kept score there as well. Something that I learned from her and passed on to Julie as well. There was one year my team was short on pitchers, so we went to the field to see if I could pitch. And she was my catcher, even without gear. That didn't go well, so I kept to second base in the outfield. As I stated earlier, we would drive everywhere on vacations. One year we went up to Canada with a stop in Corning, New York, so she can go to the Corningware outlet. At the time, I had the really stinky feet of a preteen, and my mom could not stand the odor in the car anymore, so she took my sneakers and left them under the car in the parking lot. I had to get new sneakers for the rest of the trip. She enjoyed making our birthday special with a special meal, so many years both of us would have her make lasagna for our birthdays. It was definitely our favorite thing that she made. She would also make a cake for us, frosted herself, and write happy birthday on it, and usually decorated with little flowers. I could still smell and taste those cakes. Yum. When we were in elementary school, she had a few different jobs in the school, but the most memorable was that of a lunch aide. She was assigned to my grade, so she'd be outside with us as we played on the playground and inside when we ate. Mindy's grade had the opposite timing, so many days Mindy would come running out to my mom asking for lunch money, for ice cream money, I should say. This did not make my mom happy. When I was eating lunch, she'd be wandering around making sure everything was okay. She would pass my table and see that I had most of my food still remaining on my tray. So inevitably, she would tell me to eat, which I responded, "I'm chewing." This would happen many days in a row, and I remember my whole table responding for me in unison one time, "He's chewing!" All she could do with that was laugh. When I was 12 to 15 years old, I had a paper route for the Inquirer. Every Saturday, she would drive me to deliver the papers, which was followed by breakfast at the nearby Country Club Diner, which is no longer there. We would sit in the same booth, order the same breakfast, and usually listen to the same songs on the jukebox at the table. That was our time each week to spend quality one-on-one time. Those are some of the memories from my childhood that jumped out to me and Mindy. So there's so much more that I will think of in the coming days, weeks, and months that will make me smile. I will always miss you, Mom. I love you.
We'll now call upon her grandchildren, Stephanie, Brianna, and Micah.
Hello, I'm Micah. I'm the youngest of the grandchildren. I may not be the best public speaker, but I felt this is one of those occasions that you have to step up. You only get 2 grandmothers, and now that I've lost each of them, it's been hard to process. My mom has always talked about how she loved her grandkids and was so proud, and how proud of us she was. One of my favorite memories of her is going to her house as a kid playing with marbles on the Chinese checkerboard. Though it wasn't anything crazy, every time I went over, I knew I could depend on playing marbles.
I'm Brianna, Micah's sister, and my mom's second grandchild. As kids growing up, toys and games is all we really cared about. Playing marbles was one of the highlights of visiting my mom and pop-ups. Another highlight was going up to the spiral staircase to get to the loft of the old house. This was always considered a special occasion because that's where the better toys lived. Whether it was the restaurant and the pretend food or the garage, is always a fun time to visit. So thank you, Steph, for having these toys stored there, and thank you, Mom, for letting us play with them.
All right, now that the little ones have had their moment, it's time for the main event. For those of you who don't know, I am Stephanie, the oldest, and only for 7 years, grandchild. All jokes aside, being the oldest, I have the most memories to reflect on prior to my grandmother's health not being the best. My grandparents watched me often when I was younger, so I have fond memories of going to the pool, playing parcheesi, and getting our nails done. My mom also taught me how to knit, and I went everywhere with my bag of yarn and knitting needles in tow for a short period of time. No matter what I did or where I went in life, my mom would always cheer me on, even if she wasn't present. If you could not tell yet, our grandmother loved family so much. Mom, I promise to honor you each and every day, and we will continue to remain close as you watch over us.
We'll now call upon her brother Steve.
We'll give them a second. Good afternoon. I too am grateful for all of you being here. I apologize for the 5-minute delay in starting. American Airlines decided it would be better for us to have a flight taking off an hour later than scheduled. My sister was born Betty Ann Spector. About 57 years later, Bob Schwartz changed all that. And I will digress here for just a moment to talk about Bob, because I think he's a saint. Maybe the first Jewish saint, I don't know. But his care for Betty before she went into the home and his attention to her and dedication while she was in Lionsgate was just spectacular. And for that, I'll be eternally grateful, Bob. Betty was the middle child of 3. My older brother, Bill, who is 85 now, is actually in a rehab center, and so he could not be here. I don't remember much about the first 3 years of my sister's life because I was born 2 years after her, and the first year is kind of a blur. But we had lots of fun times as a kid, and as you've heard said, that family was very important to Betty. We had wonderful holiday meals. I have probably the fondest recollection of our seders, in which all of the adults were at one end of the table and all of the kids were at the other end of the table, except for one adult, my Aunt Margie, my mother's sister-in-law. Margie was one of the most irreverent people I've ever known. And while the Seder was going on at the serious end of the table, my sister was right in there with us kids, drinking in all of the jokes, many of them off color, that our Aunt Margie was telling. You've heard so much about her dedication to family and friends. I'll just give one episode, and that has to do with the wedding of my daughter, Rachel. Rachel was married almost 16 years ago now in California. And you've heard that Betty didn't like to fly, and family was important. So she came to the wedding, despite the fact that she was already confined to a wheelchair. And that event really epitomizes the lengths she would go to for family, to really make sure she was part of the broader family. In terms of early childhood, I sat and thought about things that I could tell you that would raise your spirits. And the story I told you about satyrs and about family are the most important things. But in all honesty, we had kind of an uneventful childhood. We were very fortunate. I always said as a kid, I never remember wanting anything I didn't have. We had those kind of parents. We were very fortunate. And Betty grew up in this fortunate background. And what that sent her was love. And she had that love of family and evolved that love of her friends, as you've heard. And I think more than anything else, that is the thing that everyone should take away and remember about Betty Schwartz, that she was loved and she loved unendingly to her family and her friends. Thank you.
Holding tight to all those memories, those moments you have mentioned and expressed so beautifully, honoring the love that Betty shined into this world, the love that she also received fully and openly. We offer this reading. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember her. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember her. So long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. I invite you to now please rise as you are able for our memorial prayer of El Malei Rachamim.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bameromim, Hametzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanvei Ashchina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezar Arakia, Mazirin, Et Nishmat Perl Hana Shehalach Leolama, Ba'al Rachamim, Yastireha Beseter Knafav Leolamim, Mitzror Pitzror Achayim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, V'tanuach B'shalom Al Mishkava, V'nomar Amen.
God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one who has gone into eternity find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace. With the holy and the pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold her close to you forever, so that her soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May she find a home with you, and may she rest in peace. Together we say, Amen. You may be seated.
Interment will follow our chapel service this afternoon at Crescent Memorial Park in Pennsauken. Betty's family will be observing Shiva at Joel and Julie's home in Mount Laurel Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, beginning at 6 p.m. each evening, with minion services at 7:30 p.m. each night.